topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. It's Tuesday morning, and it's awesome to be here. Thank you for joining us as always. And I want to thank each and every one of you that have got our books. We have got several books, especially the focus is on the Entrepreneur's Garden and Expert to Influencer, because we get emails after emails telling us how the books have impacted them. And not only that, partial profits from the book's earnings go to kiva.org. So it's a win-win situation all around. And folks, I invite you and highly encourage you to share 1 hour of your time with no strings attached over a period of a month with anyone that you like. Just give. Just help somebody out. And I want to share a quick story. So Zen story. So there is this Zen master and somebody's visiting him and says, "Oh, I'm this expert and that expert, and I've come to learn a little bit more from you." So what Zen master says is that, "Okay, I'm going to show you something, and if your answer is right, I'll take you on as my student." So what he does is he takes a cup of tea and then he starts pouring tea in that cup. So that cup is already full. So what happens is that tea, of course, starts overflowing. And the potential student asks, "Gosh, you don't even know that? If a teacup is full, you don't pour tea in that. What are you going to teach me?" And Zen Master asks him, "What did you learn from what I showed you?" And the guy goes and says, "There's nothing to learn. What's there to learn? It just tells me that you've got no clues. You have no knowledge that you can give me." And Zen Master says very calmly, without being affected, that what that shows is that if you're full of opinion or if you're full of fears, then you can never be open to receiving new things. So the key to growth, the key to learning is being open and keeping your cup half full so that you can receive more knowledge, you can find new opportunities. So that's the story we are going to start off our conversation today with, and let's invite our guest. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. And I liked your story a lot.
Pleasure to have you. So, Gary, usually we start out from your childhood. Can you tell us if you recall any moments that stand out in your memory even today?
Yeah, when I was a young, we didn't have any money. So we were living in a pretty small house. There were 6 of us. And I like fireworks. So when I was 10 years old, we drove through Tennessee on our way to Alabama, and I took all my money that I had, which wasn't very much, and I bought fireworks. And when I got home from Alabama, I sold them to all my friends at a pretty good profit and ended up getting my fireworks for free. And that's when I decided I'm probably going to be in sales at some point in time. That was kind of an early discovery, I would say, Divya. So,
Well, that is fascinating. You are very young, 10 years old, and you figured out a way to market it. And that's the key. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship, of being open
definitely
rather
was
than,
a young entrepreneur. Yeah, that was pretty young for entrepreneurial skills, I thought so. Yeah,
yeah, very powerful.
yeah.
So as you grew up, where did your interest lie?
Actually, when I went to college, I went to Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and I was an English major. And I studied American literature and I think psych and social were my minors. And I was just fascinated by what I could learn by reading books and then by studying people.
Now that's very interesting. I know literature is filled with awesome works and some very impressive works. Do you have a couple of favorites?
Yeah, I really like Lee Child. I like the Jack Reacher series. He just tells really good stories and he captures me in the first page. And it's amazing how he does that. And I can't put the book down. It's kind of like eating ice cream. Anyway, I just can't put it down. But the other one, John Grisham, is impressive. I really like him. I like Malcolm Gladwell a lot. I think I've read everything he's ever put out. So those are the ones that jump right into my forefront.
Absolutely. So tell us, what is it that's gripping? Like, you talked about Lee, and what's on his first page that just grabs your attention?
He takes a character, he puts you in a place that you don't expect to be, and all of a sudden something happens that just changes like that. And so he can get you to the story so fast. And, he'll be sitting in a coffee shop, Reacher, and he'll see something. And then that whole story evolves right off of what he just saw at the window. He's very good at doing that. He hooks me really fast.
Well, being a student of literature, you caught his strategy. And that is so powerful, because I'm all about storytelling. And before we kind of get into that or something like that, it's when you're being present in the moment, it again kind of goes back to your cup being empty to be able to receive. He is showing, and I know it's entertainment, and yet if you're observant, you can capture those opportunities in life. So as you continue through your college journey, where did that take you?
It got me a really good degree, and I learned to like music a lot. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I would say my grades were rather average or below average in the beginning, and then I actually started figuring out how to study and become a student. It only took me 3 years of college to get there. But anyway, from there, I just couldn't figure out what I was going to do. So I came home to Canton, Ohio, and actually my first job was cleaning furniture and carpets. And yeah, that wasn't such a good job. I was just trying to figure out life, and the guy said, "Hey, I need some help. You want some money?" And I said, "Sure." So I would work with him, and he was interesting because he had a really unique philosophy of life. And I learned a lot from him just kind of doing this job. And before I knew it, I was in sales. I started working for a company. I called him Mercy Hire. This guy was a very good friend of my father's. And he needed a salesman. And my dad said, "Why don't you hire Gary so I can get him out of the house?" And I'm pretty sure that's how the conversation went. I'm not sure if he didn't subsidize my first pay. I don't know. But I took that job and did that for 5 years. And then I finally said, okay, I have to find something that feels better to me. And not that that job wasn't good. It just was not fulfilling at all. So that's how I ended up where I'm at now.
So let's kind of go back to your first job where you said this gentleman had a philosophy. Tell us about that.
Well, he was a very unique guy. Drove a Harley, owned this dry cleaning, or actually carpet cleaning business. Joel was a super nice man and very generous. And what I realized is Joel would do anything for any customer, regardless of what it was. He would just say yes. And sometimes we got into things we should have never gotten into because Joel said yes. And so we were in a truck driving back one day. And I mean, we were carrying furniture 3 floors down. And I'm not that big of a guy. I learned how to lift weights, but and know how to do that stuff without killing myself or Joel. But it was funny. We carried this couch down 3 floors and to clean it and get it outside because we couldn't clean it up where it was. And I looked at the couch and Joel looked at the couch, and this couch was the rattiest, worst couch I've ever seen in my life. There was no way we were going to clean this thing. It was impossible. It was good for like trash. But anyhow, we ended up carrying it right back upstairs. It didn't look any bit better than we did when we carried it down. And we got in a truck and we're driving away. And I said, Joel, why in the world did we carry that couch 3 floors knowing full well that there's no way you're going to clean it? He said, Gary, the customer asked me to do that. And my job is to serve my customer. I couldn't argue with him. And he said, and by the way, you know, they paid us for carrying that couch. And I said, okay. But it just seemed like but he had his method and he said, I'm going to do whatever they asked me to do. And that's how we're going to build our business.
And was he able to build his business?
Oh, yeah. He had a great business. So he worked exactly as hard as he wanted to. So he had himself scheduled exactly the way he wanted to schedule it. And yeah, if it was a beautiful day and he wanted to go ride his Harley, that's what he did. So he was a very unique man.
Well, good for him. And it's amazing how much we learn from other stories and life experiences. So you mentioned that you did not find the sales job fulfilling. So tell us, how was your experience in sales? Like, were you good in sales? Because definitely from what you shared with us, when you were a 10-year-old,
Yeah.
and now you are here in
Still
sales.
found. Yeah, no, I actually found that was my niche in life. I did like selling things, and I've sold things my whole life. And it was just one of those things where I've always felt comfortable as long as I was confident in what I was selling. The product had to be a good product. If it, you know, I just couldn't sell a product that wasn't going to meet my standards. And I still have that view in life. I refuse to sell something if I don't own it myself. I just won't. I said, I need to understand this personally, and then I can be confident. Well, that was kind of like that with everything I ever did. I just decided that I needed to really be involved in it, or I can't do it.
Mm. Now you talked about the product. So tell us, like, what was the requirement for you that brought you fulfillment?
What happened is I had to be doing something that at the end of the day, I thought I made something good happen for somebody. I had to have I hate to use this word because it gets used so much. I had to have a purpose. I had to do something that would lead me to making sure that I was making some sort of impact on the world, whatever that would be. And I couldn't do that in my first job selling waxes and polishes. I could make cars look good, but I don't know that I ever I never had that good, great feeling in my heart. When I went into my business I've been in for 40 years, financial services, I realized I'm changing people's lives and I'm doing things for them. And I felt fulfilled by that. And I think some of them appreciate it. So I won't say all of them do, but I think some of them do and most of them do. So.
Absolutely. And it so happens that most of the entrepreneurs step into entrepreneurship because they have a passion that's driving them. And there's a purpose that's fueling that passion. Or either way around, like, you know, sometimes it's the purpose fueling the passion. Sometimes it's the passion fueling the purpose. But that said, these two do come together. And what happens is that in that field of passion and purpose, sometimes a lot of entrepreneurs lose sight of having a relationship with money, of knowing their numbers. And then they are so much into the weeds. They are in the business versus working on the business that they cannot see. Their passion dries out. And so many times they are at a point where they may not even think of retiring till their golden years are past. So how can they go about it where they can plan ahead of time?
Well, it's funny. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. I always have. I've always been attracted to that group. I like the way they think, and I like the fact that they move fast and make decisions fast, and that they're creative. So they're fun for me to work with, but they have a flaw, and the flaw is they're always trying to reinvest their money back into business because they made so much money, and they forget the fact that they should put them on the sideline because stuff happens, and you hit retirement, or all of a sudden they're going to need to replace a car. They don't have the cash in hand, whatever it is. It's just amazing how much money I've watched people reinvest in their business but not have any money to live on. And I keep smiling inwardly and think, yeah, I really tried to talk them out of doing that and I couldn't do it. And now bad things happen, and then I feel really bad because I know that if they would have paid attention, we could have helped them with that. Plus, businesses go up and down. The real world goes up and down. And so I have clients of mine who are doing really, really well. And I really try to get them to hold on to some cash because you got to have an emergency fund. And it's amazing how many times those emergency funds have come in and solved an emergency. I've gotten some really powerful letters and emails and things from people just thanking me for, doing what I do.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, set some cash aside. Besides that, what else people can do?
Well, mentally, you've got to have, I think you have to have something in your life besides your business. And I talk to my entrepreneurs about that a lot. And I'm guilty of that up to a point, but I write books, I do other things. I have a lot of stuff I like to do. But a lot of my clients don't. And so I really am kind of helping them, kind of guiding them into figuring out what's next. Because you can do this forever, or you can do this for a while, or you can do this part-time, whatever you want to do. But there's a lot of life to live if you want to live it, and if you have something to do while you're doing it. So I think that's what I really try and focus on with my clients. I try and get them to really go forward 10 years, go forward 5 years. Tell me what it's going to look like if you go semi-retirement. Describe that for me. They're a deer in headlights. They have no idea.
That's true. Because they're so consumed by problems at hand and they're in that firefighting mode all the time.
Yes.
And as you talked about reinvesting, that next shiny syndrome, oh yeah, that's going to take my business to X, Y, and Z. Oh yeah, I'm missing out on that, fear of missing out, FOMO, as they talk about. And what it does is, rather than taking them ahead, it pulls them back.
Correct. There's another thing that entrepreneurs do that drives me crazy, and I know this from personal experience because it drove me crazy. We always had a tendency to look forward, and we're always chasing that carrot, whatever that carrot was. And what I realized, I was in that same trap until someone very intelligent told me one time I need to go back and see where I came from. And so I do a review for myself pretty much about every 90 days. I'll sit down and talk about my past 90 days, but I'll also go back and look at my past and see really where I came from, how I started, where I got to now. And that really kind of gives me some perspective and helps me, because if I'm always chasing and moving ahead, I'm not appreciating what's going on, and I'm certainly not smelling any roses.
Absolutely. And also you're not learning from the previous mistakes.
Correct.
And that's why they say history keeps on repeating itself, right?
That is very true. Deja vu. Yeah.
Yeah. So. That age-old adage is so very true. And here's the thing. When you talk about having those emergency funds is so important, because the first time my business tanked, when my right shoulder broke, I wasn't prepared for it. But then as I continued working on my business, I was prepared that what if we have a contingency? What if there is some uncertainty? And that's what happened in 2020. In 2019, and my team had just kind of sat down, laid out a plan, hustle and grind, and it worked out beautifully. We had several retreats planned throughout the year in 2020, and all of them booked. And we were like, yeah, all we need to do is implementation. It's this year, we have hustled up front and we are good to roll. And of course, pandemic hits. We lost quite a bit of money, and we did not get all the refunds back because a lot of vendors were also hurting. And under force majeure, you cannot tell the vendors like, okay, this was very clear in the contract that this is going to be non-refundable. So we lost money, we had to pivot. And that said, because I had learned from my previous experience, we were able to come out of it. And as you mentioned, like, it requires so much mental capacity too. It's not just going in work, work, work. So from a mindset perspective, what are two things that you would tell entrepreneurs to have?
Oh, those are good. So mindset, I read a really good book about mindsets, and it really triggered some thoughts. And I went back and looked at my own mindsets, and I realized one of them is I don't react to bad things for 24 hours. And it sounds kind of funny, but something happens, instead of picking up the phone or sending an email or doing a text, I let it cool for 24 hours. And I let me cool for 24 hours. And I found that has really been a valuable tool. And it keeps me from being impulsive and doing something I regret later, because I've done that in the past. I learned from my mistakes. So the mindset of just having patience, I would tell you, has been valuable to me. That's huge, and patient in a lot of different ways. The other thing is realizing that my time frame and my clients' time frames aren't the same, and having the ability to sit back and just relax and not be too chilled out, but not be too concerned either. So just let life take its course, I guess. And then I'll throw one other thing in that I think is kind of fun. I really focus on, I focus on not what I'm going to benefit from this at all, but what my client's going to benefit. And by doing that, it just changes everything. And that mindset probably is the most powerful one I have. As I tell people every day, I'm skinny, but I eat all my meals. I'm fine. This is about you. It's not about me. And I said, and I'm not worried. And if you get up and walk out of this room, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to go eat dinner and go to my movie or whatever I decide to do. It just doesn't matter. And that attitude I had to take on at a very young age, when I didn't have any money and didn't understand it, but knew that was the right thing to do, and really grew into that.
That's powerful. I really like that. Taking the moment and just enjoying it. That is very powerful. So now we have talked about mindset. We have talked about a few implementations. So let's say you talked about patience. Of course, if you're planning to get retired, you just can save in your last 5 or 6 years. So let's say, especially for young entrepreneurs who may be starting out, or people who may be starting out now, what are some tangible real life action steps that you can share with them that they can just kind of go and implement it straight away?
Well, I'm a big fan of simple IRAs, Roth IRAs. I'm a fan of 401ks. I like good life insurance policies that are set up properly to accumulate money. I like things that accumulate money in a very safe, conservative way. And you just keep parking it in every month. I love dollar cost averaging, and all those plans, you can do that. So you're buying when the market's low, and you're also buying when it's high. But when you average it all out, you come out okay. At least that's been that way for 40 years. And those are the things I like to do. I like to be on a systematic plan. I want to build every single month. I don't want to try and do large sums. And you can't do it in the last 5 years. You just have to start at an early age. I went into a client just recently. We installed a 401k. And one of the employees wasn't going to put any money in. The employer was going to give them 2% to start with for everybody. And I went to the employee and I said, you need to put at least 1% of your pay. And he said, oh, I can't afford that. I said, 1%. So we ran the math, and he looked at me and says, yeah, I can afford that. And I said, okay. But the idea that he couldn't was really planted in his brain until he really looked at the numbers and said, that's not a big deal. And I said, yeah, I know, you can do this. And so, and I think those are really important.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people depend on Social Security. Oh, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to get Social Security.
Yeah.
So I know you have talked about that there are some misconceptions around that. What might those be?
Well, Social Security is a great program. It's just not something to be on its own. If you support it with other products, IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401ks, any kind of pension, any kind of income, annuities, you just need to support it, because if you're living on Social Security, you're not living on very much. And I've very sadly had people come in who are, they don't have any money. They're going to retire on Social Security and $50,000. That doesn't work. I said, you cannot quit work. You need to keep doing something, because you're going to run out of money very fast. So people who are dependent on Social Security and think that's going to be their savior, no, they're not going to be living very well, and they're not going to have a very fun life, because they're not going to be able to afford anything. And I think you have to supplement it. And I think people have this misconception that, oh, that'll be here, that'll be great. And it is great as long as you have some other help.
Got it. And a lot of people can find out that there is a social security calculator, especially they can go check your social security account, and you can plug in the age that you want to retire. And a lot of people even retire at an early age. Some people can start taking at 60, 62, or 65, 67. And then it will tell you how much money you're going to get per month. And similarly to that, do you want to share about pension plans? Because even in pension plans, it depends. Either you can take out, sometimes depending on your company, a lump sum, or you can get, depending on the year that you're pulling out, a larger amount for the rest of your life.
Correct. Yeah, those are two really good options. And most 401ks, pensions offer you the ability to withdraw your funds and do your own thing. So you can move that to your IRA, you can buy stocks, you can buy bonds, you can really do whatever you want. The other side, though, is the annuity side. And I like the annuity side, not so much from the insurance company that has the pension plan, but other companies, because if you really do this properly, you'll find there are usually better rates on the outside than inside. I don't know why that is. I guess because they have you as a client, they don't have to be as good. But so we shop the outside world and really broker that. But what I've learned, and this is kind of cool, the people who have an annuity income live longer than those who don't. And the reason is because, like Social Security, it shows up every month. They have less money stress, and that they know that check's going to be there like clockwork. And they also know that it'll last as long as they last. So, and if you do it right, you can even have your spouse, if you have one, and they'll have it as long as they live. So you can do some kind of cool things with that make you much more comfortable in retirement. If you take your money and you do your own thing, you can also use that same product. I try and caution my clients that this isn't a good time to go to Las Vegas, because it's dangerous and you can really make some big mistakes and really, I had a client that did and I don't follow Bitcoin at all, except I know it's been getting clobbered. But I had a client who took most of his 401k and moved it to an IRA and bought Bitcoin. Not through me, because I said I can't do that. But I sometimes think about him and wonder, but I don't call him and ask him, because it's not my place.
Right, absolutely. And since we are talking about Bitcoins, a lot of people have been hesitant, and yet at the same time, a lot of people made a lot of money because it grew very fast. And then we have already seen that hundreds of billions of dollars have been wiped out over the past few months. So if somebody was thinking about it, what would your recommendation be?
I have this, again, I'll go back to what I said in the very beginning of the show. I won't sell something I don't own, and I haven't bought a Bitcoin. And the reason I haven't purchased any is because I can't figure it out well enough to really be comfortable. I spend time studying what I sell and understanding the product. I can't understand Bitcoin well enough that it lands in my brain where I said, yeah, I'm good with this. I just have never gotten there. And so until I get there, and I've listened to so many seminars on Bitcoin, I can't tell you, and in interviews I've read and all these things, and I still look at that and I say, yeah, I just can't get my arms around it well enough that I'm comfortable.
No, and that's very powerful, because you're staying true to yourself, that, hey, I'm going to put my name behind something that I'm passionate about, something that I know is going to bring success to my clients. So now tell us, besides doing the financial advising, what else do you do? Because I know you're an author as well.
I've written 3 books. The first book was called If Your Money Talked, What Secrets Would It Tell? And I wrote that book because I was so frustrated. That was about 12, 13, 14 years ago, I guess. I was so frustrated with how little my clients understood money and how they were teaching their children their bad habits. And I thought, okay, I'm going to write a very simple book. I call it an airplane book. You can get on in Cleveland, off in Chicago, and finish my book. But the whole point was to explain some things that were just simple truths and secrets that would help them with money. They're not secret, but people seem to think they are. So that was the first book. Second book was called The American Dream Revisited. And that one happened because I was sitting in a coffee shop called Karma Cafe in Canton, Ohio at 8 o'clock in the morning. And 4 college students walked in and sat at the table next to me, behind me. And they started having a conversation about the American dream. And one of them called it the American disaster. And they were really pounding on the country pretty hard. And they were saying, they had big college debts and the cell phone bills and all this other stuff. And I listened and said, okay, I'm thinking and I'm listening to myself. And then one of the students who was sitting at the table said, listen, he said, I know we all have college debts and all this stuff. He said, but I'm going to get a good job and I'm going to pay off my college loans and I'm going to have a good life. And the 3 others just slammed that poor guy. And I felt bad for him because I remember having a similar discussion when I was in college in an English lecture where I was that guy. And so I felt, wow, he just got bombarded. Anyway, that triggered in my brain, I need to write a book about the real American dream, the one where food, clothing, and shelter, and you come here and you figure out how to make a life. That's the one I decided to write. So I interviewed a bunch of people all the way across the country, didn't know most of them, but had been told of their stories. And then I wrote that book. So that was fun. That was more for me than anybody else. I wrote that book for Gary and did sell quite a few of them, but I really wrote that personal. The new book is called How to Retire and Not Die, the 3 Ps that will keep you young.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
That book was a book that I felt compelled to write because so many of my clients were coming in without some sort of a program when they hit retirement of what to do. They just didn't have any game plan. So I would ask them, okay, you're going to retire. Tell me what your first day is, your first week, your first month, and your first year of retirement is going to be like. Tell me what's going to happen. And they said, well, the first day is easy. I'm just going to kick back and do nothing. I said, okay, tell me about the first week. He said, well, I'm going to really do that for the first week. I said, okay, tell me about the first month. And then it's deer in headlights. They have no clue. And we get into this discussion. Well, the problem I had is that so many of those people couldn't figure it out and ended up getting sick. And next thing I know, I'm going to nursing homes and hospitals and funerals. It was awful. And it wasn't just a couple people. It was a lot of people. What I realized is they had worked their whole life and never figured out what the rest is going to look like. They'd actually spent more time figuring out their 1 week vacation, 2 weeks vacation than they did the next 25, 30 years.
Yeah, it's a sad state. And most of us are so entangled in the life's web that we don't look beyond what's happening right now. And people are in the firefighting mode. So that's very powerful. So share with us your 3 Ps and how people can bring it in as they retire.
Well, the 3 Ps are purpose, passion, and a plan. In my definition, which I stole from someone, purpose is what you do for other people. Passion is what you do for yourself. And the plan is the plan. You got to have a plan. If you don't, you wake up in the morning and you don't know what you're going to do. It's like I tell people, I said, listen, you're going from a weekend to 7 days a week. So what did you do in a weekend? Oh, I did this and this. I said, so tell me what you're going to do for 7 days a week. I said, well, that's a lot longer than a weekend. I said, yeah, I was good in math. That was one of my strong points. And it's a lot longer. You have a lot of hours. How are you going to fill them? And that's when we start having a real conversation. And it's really funny because everybody, and I mean everyone, comes in to see me. It's about money. Divya, that's all they want to talk about because retirement money, that's where their mind is. Mindset is, oh, I got to have enough money. And And I do that for a few minutes, and then I kind of get them comfortable and say, okay, we're going to change topics. We'll get back to the money, but let's talk about this for a minute. And then I shift them over and I start asking them questions about what do you do for the rest of your life? And that's where purpose, passion, and plan come in.
Yeah, it's powerful. Like, you could have all the money in the world, and if you don't know what to do with it, then what's the point? Because it's important to have impact, to help others out, and have that purpose in your life, because that's the golden years, is the time to realize it. And
Totally.
where can people find your books, and how can they connect with you?
My books are on my website, GarySirak.com. And if you do get it through my website, it will sign it and personalize it for you. You can obviously go to Amazon and all the other book sites. Barnes & Noble has it. They all have access to it. And and that's really how we get to it. And if someone wants to email me, ask me questions, which I do get a fair amount of those about retirement, they can also check out my website, which has I have a how to retire and not die website that it's kind of personal Facebook group for people who are really entering retirement and have questions and want to figure out how to deal with it. So we've set that up also.
Well, fantastic. And if you were to leave our audience with 3 things that they can go and implement in their lives to include passion, purpose, and plan, what would those be?
I would ask them to please create a wish list. And the wish list is everything that you wished you were doing, but you couldn't because you're in the middle of work. And I'd like you to write those things down. And I started doing that probably 25, 30 years ago by accident. And it was a to-do list. And then it used to be a bucket list, but I saw that movie and decided I wasn't going to be a bucket list anymore because they died at the end. The wish list was better. So it's much more positive in my brain. But a wish list is a big deal. And when you get to retirement and you have a wish list of all the things you didn't do, you can then look at those and say, oh, I can check this box. I can check that box. I really like that. The other thing I would say, if they're serious about retirement, they really do need to start thinking about what lights their fire, what gets them excited, what do they love to do, and also what they don't like to do, because retirement's a great time to stop doing stuff you don't like to do because you had to. I'll give you a great example. I don't own a lawnmower. There's a reason I've never owned a lawnmower. I don't like to mow grass. One of my best friends went out and bought a lawnmower so he could mow grass. He never had time. That's just how he feels about it. He loves being on that mower for 2 hours, and I dread that, and I just won't do it. So I think it's important knowing what you really love to do and what makes you happy and excited. The third thing I would say is if they're really serious about retirement and they're struggling, they should look for what I call a retirement mentor. Someone who's already retired successfully and has got it figured out, someone that you know or have observed at least. And I tell you, buy them lunch, buy them coffee, buy them dinner. I don't care. Just ask them a bunch of questions of how they got to where they're at. I've done that for many years and found amazing information, which shows up in the book, by the way. A lot of that, all of it's in the book because I told their stories.
Well, very powerful. Thank you, Gary.
You're very welcome.
And thank you, listeners, for joining our show. The show would not be possible without you. So reach out to us like you always do. And I'm so thankful for that you're connected with us. Reach out and let us know what stories do we want. What lessons do you want to learn? What areas that you would like for us to bring guest experts in, because we are here to serve you and support you. Live the wonderful life that you deserve. So do reach out, and as you know, we are here to support you. And thank you for joining us. Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Juan, for making it technically possible. And until next time, be well and take care.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyapark.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyapark.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.